Welcome to the Dr. Philgood
Welcome,
Show,
everyone.
Our weekly broadcast on trauma recovery, cellular health, and real healing from the inside out.
I like the sound of that for
Of what?
healing
Oh,
from the inside out.
from the inside out? Yeah, I mean, you should like it. Who wouldn't like to heal from the inside out?
I want to... What are we talking about today? Oh, we're going to give our sponsor right now,
I
right?
would like to. This series is proudly sponsored by the Patrick Risciasiti Awareness Foundation, whose mission is to prevent CTE through education and early intervention.
You can visit them at stopcte.org.
They are amazing because their mission is critical to families like ours. And also, since we're helping them, let's just say what CTE is real quick, okay? For
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a neurodegenerative disease caused by repetitive head impacts.
Wow, look at that. It sounds like you just, pulled it out of a lexicon.
Wow. Thanks for the compliment. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. Let's get this out of the way so we can see who's in. You guys can chat. Although we might not be able to chat back. I've been having trouble with this restream.
Streaming is
we
not
can
allowed.
see what?
Whatever that means. It had a little sign that said streaming is not allowed.
Oh, well, disregard that. We can see your comments, in other words. Some of them. I don't think we're seeing what YouTube is offering up. So all of you YouTubers, sorry if we're not seeing your comments. We're not being rude on purpose.
So what's the deal with rumination, David?
Well, I just figured out what rumination was when you decided to tell me that's what today's show was on. I know what looping is, and the deal with looping is rumination, which is repetitive thoughts that you get trapped in. And usually they're damaging. People don't usually have repetitive thoughts of excellence.
Yeah, it's a nervous system regulation issue. But, I first and foremost, I'd like to share a personal story because I don't want anybody who's listening to this or joining into this episode to think that we're talking about stuff that we don't know about.
We look a little bright, don't
Before I met David, I lived alone. And I had a job. And so there was some sort of a schedule or routine in my life, but really I completely misstructure completely. And what I mean by that is I worked part-time. Most of the time the days that I worked were not the same from one week to another. I didn't have any other commitments. I was, studying and I was attempting to run a business on the side, but I woke up with every day with just this fear of not knowing what I was supposed to be doing that day. And I always had little energy and I felt like I was running out of time constantly. Constant anxiety about time and not knowing what I was supposed to be doing. And
it's a terrible feeling, isn't it?
And it took me years to figure out that this is not just a nervous system regulation issue. This is a complete, sign of insanity to be in a mental state that constantly creates emotional extremes from high to low and just hopelessness, basically. So I'd be really happy, if I could be like, hey, guys, this is what I did. And that's what you should be doing. And it was easy and I got out of it, but that wasn't the case. And, I'm a trauma survivor. So one of the things that I realized in the past years is that this isn't abnormal for somebody like myself. And then I also had several brain injuries as a child, and under 10 years old I had two of them, two major ones that I know of, and I don't know how many other than that. Nobody used to keep track of that back in the day. People didn't care really. Oh yeah, she fell on her head. Oh well, okay, let's cry for 5 minutes and then forget about it. So There is more to this, and I want you to share your experience with looping, please.
Well, I first experienced the knowing about it in 2017, just before I had lost my apartment and basically my sanity. I've been going through some heavy stuff with court and my son at that time, and it was just heavy on me, and my mind just kept thinking the same things. I'd wake up in the morning, and that's the first thing I was concerned about was what was being told about me in the courtroom and how I was being kept from my son. And it was terrible to experience, but I was experiencing it after it was over, like it every day. And that's all I thought of. And I didn't realize that was, the person I was with at that time said, David, you're looping. And your thoughts are just looping. It's the same thing over and over. How we recognized it is that I didn't have a filter over my mouth at this time. So every thought I had come right out my mouth. And so it was pretty obvious. And we went to a specialist at that time. We found somebody that I had quit going to the doctor a couple years prior to this because they didn't have any answers and they just kept trying to give me more drugs, psychiatric drugs, and none of them worked. They made things worse. And so we'd found somebody that was a head trauma specialist and a psychiatrist. And that was when I heard about CTE. When he, that doctor sat and listened to me for about 2 hours, and that was the first time I'd ever had that happen with a psychiatrist. And after listening to my story, he asked me if I knew known anything about or heard anything about CTE. And that's when he probably told me about rumination. I just don't remember the word because I experienced, that's what I told him sitting there, is that my mind just won't quit repeating the same thing over and over every day. It's all I think about. And it's controlling my emotions. I can't get away from it. It feels overwhelming. And then he described to me that all the other symptoms I was having were chronic traumatic encephalopathy symptoms, and that there was the way to diagnose me with that. There was no help. There was nothing he could do. He let me know all of that, and only saw me for about a month after that, and then dropped me as a patient. And so that's the reason that this is important for us to talk about, was because the thoughts had overwhelmed me in such a way that I couldn't manage my life anymore.
Well, it actually, this is my point. I didn't really call this ruminating. Probably until I started to do research on this topic, I never used that word. I didn't even think about it as looping. Actually, what I thought about it was emotional instability. What I didn't understand at that point was that it is your thoughts that are creating your emotions, okay? When you're completely alone and isolated, and of course, isolation makes this way worse. It's because, we'll talk about it later, but isolation makes it way worse. And so when you're isolated, you stay in the same thoughts, and the same thoughts are going to create the same emotions. And that's really the part that people are missing. And I missed for many, many years in my life. This is really a revelation, probably just, 3 or 4 years old. And it's very, very important, because when you tell somebody you get a hold of your emotions, they get offended and they don't understand what you're saying. Some people think that's impossible. How could I do it? That's exactly what I used to believe. I thought, how would I be responsible for my emotions? How would anybody be responsible for their emotions? Emotions are emotions. They're coming and going, and I can't do anything about them. That's what I thought. But today I understand. Thank God, seriously. I mean, this is so important, you guys. If you can just get a hold of this is gonna help you a lot. Today, I understand that my thoughts are creating my emotions. I do have the ability to generate emotions in myself. There are techniques that we learned along the way, and we share it with you guys. For example, heart brain coherence. You just need to go back and watch one of the older episodes when we talk about this. Anything that regulates your nervous system would allow you to decrease the reoccurrence of this looping, because all you have to do is to break out of that thought, and your body is going to, resolve the issue. But how? And so that's kind of like a question.
It's always easy for someone who's not dealing with this to utilize, like the scripture. The scripture said, think on these things, things that are good, things that are good report.
But you can focus on emotions too. Like, I don't know if the Bible actually talks about that.
I'm sure it does. Talks about everything we go through.
But it's like like with the focus, like hard focus breathing that we often teach people when we gather together and do any events. You actually can focus on ease. You can focus on love. You can focus on forgiveness. You can focus on gratitude. And you can generate specific emotions by focusing, like mentally focusing. It's kind of like literally like how you would have a camera and, what's sharp, what's edified, what's fed is what you are allowing within your system. And of course, in order to do that, you have to realize that it is a system.
So the Bible says in Philippians 4,
Yes.
Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. And that's an easy thing to tell someone.
Oh, very easy.
But here's what I did. I remember after I met Fru, that's what made things easier, was I had somebody who saw something different in me. So what I was seeing in me was the same old thing. Every time I turned around, I was waking up in the hospital for trying to take my own life. And I felt like I had nothing to live for. I'd already done everything that I had dreamt of wanting to do, and now everything that I had wanted that I didn't achieve, I was a failure at, and that's all it kept happening over and over. So when I met Fru, that changed. She saw something in me different. She didn't know all of my history, and therefore wasn't judging me by the history that I had. And so that helped out a lot. But I do remember the thought hitting me, if it's iffy information, something that's hearsay, that's what we end up getting stuck on. Like our mind doesn't loop good things.
Right.
And we have to teach our mind to loop good things that are honest, things that are true. Focus on the facts. And that's what helped me the most after I met you. I had to train my mind to do that. And I cut out all iffy information. If it wasn't something I knew for a fact, I didn't let it control my mind.
That's one way to kind of filter your thoughts. But I would say that I learned a different thing, and that I actually learned from you, David. So I'm gonna.
You learned a lot from me that I didn't realize.
I'm gonna give this to people right now.
Thanks.
You can evaluate your thoughts, and this applies to your words too. It's happened so many times that I talk to people and they say things and I'm like, okay, what was the point of that exactly? Like, don't say things just so that you make a noise. Say things with meanings. And so the same thing applies to your thoughts. It's a little bit different. When you think of something, stop for a moment, especially if this is a thought that's recurring, okay? Especially in that time, stop for a moment. As a matter of fact, you know what? Here's another thing you could do. Write down the thoughts that come up constantly over and over and over and over. Write all of them down. Take a journal and write every single thought that you notice, you catch yourself repeating. Write them down. Okay, once you get that, you have a long list of things that you keep repeating over and over and over. Now take every single one of those thoughts and look at them. What good are they going to produce in your life or anybody else's? Do they have a positive potential to positively affect anything or anybody, or do they not?
And most of them are going to be opinions. They're not going to be facts. They're just opinions.
When I have to say also this, that I had quite a bit of resistance in me when David introduced me to this, because I was like, okay, how would you say, how can you tell that this thought is going to produce something good or not? It's a fact, la, 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 la. Well, here's the deal. if you don't know the answer, pray about it. I mean, you know, there is such a thing called discernment. You can develop it over the years. If you don't have it, it's okay. But you have to start it somewhere. Because if you don't actually raise this awareness inside of you, where you take every single thought, that I guarantee you those thoughts are influencing everything in your life.
And you'll find out when you write them down, the majority of them are lies. And you see that.
Or just not factual.
Yeah, which in my mind is a lie. If it's not a fact, it's not truth. And so when you find out where, like, thoughts that are untrue, the opposite of what I just read from Philippians. Right. So you got good and you got evil. And in our life, it's only two things. Religion likes to try to separate all this stuff and there's all these gray areas. But in reality, there's good and there's bad. And those things that are good come from above. Those things that are bad, opposite, right? Bad. From below.
For spirituals, think about light and darkness, okay? Yeah. In case you don't believe in good or bad, because I know that that's very trendy nowadays. Not
well, yeah,
good or bad.
Who says what's good, you know?
Right. Well, that would be a judgment, and it is a lot of times, and that's, you know, that creates more stress. But
the fact is, if you do what she's saying about writing everything down, you'll expose what your thoughts are consumed with. And the biggest thing that I learned, and this is probably what she's noticed about myself, was I needed to change the way I talked, the words I said, the way I needed to change everything about me. And my dad told me, he said, the best thing for you to do is put your headphones on and listen to the Bible. And you know what? I was over religion years ago. But I had nothing else to live for. I said, what do I got to lose? I'm going to do what my dad says. And as I did that, it changed the way I thought, changed the way I talked. And then I was able to start realizing as the thought would come through. I didn't have a filter over my thoughts for probably 4 or 5 years. I don't think.
Well, actually, you don't like. Okay, when he says filter, just think about it this way. I read this, and I want wholeheartedly agree 100% that an emotion, if you don't feed it, it takes anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds to replace it with something. That includes thoughts too. So I'm not asking you not to have certain thoughts. When you get into that rabbit hole, you're going to get lost, I guarantee you. I have bad thoughts up until today. It's not about not having bad thoughts. We all have bad thoughts. We are human. And from a biblical point of view, I would like to say this too, because I hear people talking about, from a religious point of view and going like, this is your flesh and that is your flesh, while completely disregarding that this is your flesh too. Like this part, this dysfunctional part of your mind is your flesh. That's your fleshly mind, your worldly mind. So if you want uplifted thoughts, you have to recognize that the source of those are not good. They're not creating anything good in your life. And
you're in charge of what you focus on. You are. You're the one in controlling the remote control.
And I don't want you to feel, but because this is the other thing, David, I don't know what, you might have never had these thoughts, but one of the most, one of the thoughts that came up most often to me during that time was, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
What is wrong with me?
I had that all the time.
And you know that what is wrong with you, I can tell you right now, your nervous system is broken. That's what's wrong with you. And it can be fixed. You are not broken. You are not a failure.
We all come from the same source, okay? The light. When we were born, before we were born, during conception, what happens? If you haven't seen that video where it shows how conception happens, there's a light, a flight. In the womb. Yeah, it shows like light happens, and then life begins. And we all come from that. You're not born without that. Right. So the broken side of you, the reason, and it's hard not to sound religious because of,
Well, because it's inside of your mind, it's not visible, so it's
well, I mean,
spiritual matter.
Yeah, the way we speak, because it is religious,
It is spiritual.
it is spiritual, and that anybody that watches us or follows us, we want you to know that it's not. This isn't a religious in church setting thing that we're talking about when we talk about God or the Bible. This has to happen at home. This has to happen inside your internal being. We're all living in a shell that's going to die at some point.
And you don't have to consume the Bible in order to understand this and practice it either.
Her and I came from two separate worlds. One that I was surrounded by the scriptures all my life, all my childhood, and her on the opposite end. They even spoke against the Bible, like it was crazy to believe in it. So we came from two separate worlds and brought together by the same light. And now we
found the same results, you know, due to the same changes that we made.
So, if you've had a bad experience with religion, you're not the only one. There's a whole bunch of people and it's not religion.
One of the things they're not going to
people.
tell you in church, and that's why, it's part of the reason why we talk about these things. We go to church and we have lots of friends who are in church. One of the things that are not going to tell you in church is that your nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, it has dominance over your thoughts, over your emotions, over your whole entire life. You're always high alert. You're always anxious. And yes, there is a chemical component, a brain chemistry, dissonance, if you will, that relates to the anxiety that you can change with nutrition and cellular, healing and that kind of stuff. But still, there is a pattern. I actually used to call this like a nervous system posturing, like a neural posturing, because do you remember that little talk we did about being addicted to drama?
Yeah.
But this is exactly the same thing. You are addicted to creating those negative emotions every single day, and that's why you keep circulating the same thoughts. You see, those thoughts are unconscious. But then they become conscious, and then they're going to create an emotion. Every single emotion that you have in your life is going to create this cocktail of hormones. And just like a drug, it's going to be injected not injected, but spread it out in your blood. So it's going to get into your bloodstream, and from there, it's going to travel to your cells.
And it affects the way you feel.
And your cells are like humans when they're exposed to drugs, or substances, if you will. Your cells have this layer around them, and then they also have these receptor sites where these hormones bind with the cells and enter the cell wall. Well, guess what? The more you have of the same emotion, the cell wall thickens, the harder it becomes for those hormones to enter your cell. And therefore, your body, your consciousness is going to unconsciously create situations in which you are reminded of the same thoughts so that it can have more of the same substances. That's why it's a must to break out of this vicious cycle, because every time we allow it, it has a greater and greater hold over us.
And we're not discussing this because we don't have these things in our life. These are things that everything we discuss in here is something that we're experiencing or have experienced. So if you're experiencing any of this, please hear us from that place.
Right.
So are we. And how are we getting through it? Fru and I were discussing this right before the show. Like how we don't have an answer for people other than
what we did, basically.
What we did and how we met each other. She changed my life, and I changed her life. And on your own, how do you do this? I know that when she met me, something had shifted in me. I'd just woken up in the hospital from another attempt on my life. And something had shifted where I was positive. The thoughts I was having was positive. And I don't know if it was you that showed up, that came into my life that gave me, that's the one thing that was different. My mom and dad had been there beside me plenty of times before. And so that was normal for me to have when I woke. Well, the previous 2 years I'd woken up at the same time during Christmas for attempt on my life, and I was alone. But this time my parents were there, and then Fru's the one thing that was different. That the one thing in my life that I didn't have was someone spiritual, someone who believed. She had faith in what she was doing, which was unseen. She was doing energy work, and I needed it. And she was able to use what she knew spiritually, how to help ignite. It ignited a flame in me, and I began to be positive. So without her, I don't know that anything would have changed.
I don't know, because I think he's the most positive person on the whole entire planet. No. So I really don't know about that. But let's go back to why this gets worse when we're isolated. Let's talk about that a little bit. This unsupervised thinking, this is what I had so much in my life personally when this happened. You know, there was not really a stable friend in my life who would, I would have a conversation with every single day about either how I was doing or how they were doing, or, you know, just even
being authentic,
meaningless little stuff, you know, just to kind of keep somebody's company, to assure them that you are there if they need you, or that they're not alone, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And not having that in your life, and then not having a structure in your life, which I had no structure back then, that's going to create this stress, this constant stress and constant hopelessness.
I know what it was that changed.
What?
Both of us. We discussed this a while ago. One of my best friends from Spain.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah, we're going to get to that?
No, you go ahead.
We can.
No,
One of the things that you can do that will change everything for you is to, instead of focusing on yourself,
focus on somebody.
Find somebody that's suffering and just help them.
Yeah.
Someone that's hungry, feed them.
So actually, that's why, you know, I said that I'm not gonna have an easy solution for you, but I can tell you what got me out of it. David got me out of it, and how I got to David. This is exactly the interesting part. Was that I kept asking God, what is wrong with me? What can I do to get better? This is just a funk. I can't get out. What am I supposed to be doing? And so the first thing that came to mind after probably a long time was to go out. Don't worry about your business. You have money. You can pay your bills. You got your, you know, food covered, expenses covered. So don't worry about that. Forget about that. This is time. You have time. So it is time for you to do something for somebody else who cannot give anything back to you.
And she's at the exact same time that she had that thought. I'm in need. I need someone to care for me. And so
he actually reached out to me for the first time during that period. So, and this is the funny part of it, you know, I don't think we talk about this too much, but David reached out to me responding to a marketing attempt, and he responded with I want to use your tool, but I can't pay for it. And so you don't get, you know, like as a business owner, you're not going to get a whole lot of messages like that. So first of all, that stuck with me, but also because I didn't have a program in place where I would, you know, like I would have a sliding scale, or yes, I offer, you know, free services, you know, this many or whatever. That actually got a hold of me in a way, because I was like, okay, I have the tool. He needs this tool. I know he needs this tool. I was afraid of opening it up to somebody who I don't know, you know, who's not gonna pay me, because I didn't want to be abused on the long run, and you have to protect yourself. So that was, but when God said specifically that this is what I needed to do, then the next natural step would have been, okay, well, who do I help? And so I knew I'm not going to go to volunteer to a non-for-profit organization when I 100% believe that what I have is actually what people need. So instead of doing that, I started to say back to God, okay, send me a sign of who that person is that needs this, and I will open it up. Or, you know, who's that person who needs what I have? Lead me to that person and I will help them. And
He shook you to that person, didn't he?
and so what
Fit me to the
happened? And
craziest
so what
person on the
happened
planet.
was actually that then I didn't talk to him for months, and then he sent me a message right when this was like already in my head that I'm gonna have the first person who comes to me after this who cannot give anything back to me and who would recognize the value of my tools and my services. And then he reaches out to me and he says, I'm in the hospital. I got a month ahead of me, 2 surgeries, and I'm just reaching out to you. I think we have an appointment scheduled. We didn't, but whatever. And so when he did that, I thought, oh, okay, now I need one more sign, God. This was one, but I need another on this same person. I think he's the person. Give me another sign. So I told him, okay, let's talk. And he called me over the phone, and he said, well, I broke up with my girlfriend and I'm in the hospital and I moved here 8 months ago or 6 months ago. I don't really have any friends around here. And, like he didn't make it sound sad, but I mean, I could read between the lines. This was also during Christmas. So I'm immediately thinking that, oh my goodness, this person, is in such danger. He can be suicidal. With those circumstances, he could easily take his life. It's so normal.
She didn't know I was in there for that.
It's so normal for people to take their lives around this time of the year. This is the time of the year when people take their lives most often, whether or not you know it. It depresses people. But anyways, that's exactly what was going on with him, which I didn't know. But I got in the car. We scheduled the time. I got in the car. I took my tools with me, whatever I could. And I was shaking in the parking lot. When I stopped the car, I couldn't stop, like this shaking that I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I guess up until today, it's really hard to describe. It wasn't fear. I mean, I drove up there. I was a little bit anxious about David, to be honest, because I saw his Facebook profile and it was really easy to read that he's not really mentally there, And then, of course, I'm alone. I'm just walking into a total stranger's hospital room. I don't know anything about
And
this
something
man.
that no one was allowed into my room because of what I was going through. My body was attacked in such a way that there was no one allowed in there without having face masks, gloves, full-on gear for 3 weeks. And you didn't use any of that. She was the only person I got to see come in normal, besides my parents. My parents didn't.
I know that it created a buzz in the hospital. The second time I went back, a doctor came in and she said, "What are you doing? Like, who are you? Are you a relative?" And I said, "No, I'm a friend, but I don't really know him all that much."
They saw a difference in me.
They did.
And the very first time she came, this is why it's important for you, no matter if you, no matter what you believe, if you feel inside like she felt, she needed to do something, that you obey it. Because when she came into that room that day and did what she, and anybody that knows nothing about energy and chakras and all the spiritual side of what she does and the gift that God's given her, would think she's just a weirdo. That's just how it is.
But in a different way.
But when she came in there and did what she did to me, I hadn't dreamt in almost 10 years. Since my car accident, I had not had an experience with God where I felt like he existed. And all my life, I had that to hang on to. That was one thing I had, was I felt I had purpose and I had a voice that spoke to me, regardless of how alone I was or how much I had felt at certain things. Always had dreams that came true. Always had a spiritual side of me. And after that car accident, I was disconnected from that. And after the very first, that was the first message I sent to you on New Year's Eve. And it was at 11:11,
right,
which is why we did Dr. Philgood at 11:11 for a long time. But that's what happened. I dreamt that first night. And so her obeying God changed my whole life. And then it changed hers as well.
So too much time alone with your thoughts isn't spiritual maturity. And I know that it feels like it's depth. But it's really just a nervous system dysregulation in disguise. So that's one of the things that I'd like you to understand. And then the other thing is the faith without spiritual bypassing. So, this is true for health. This is true for life. This is true for business. Without moving, you're never going to get anywhere. And Jesus didn't ask people to think harder. He asked them to move. He asked them to stand, pick up your bed, follow me, walk, go down to the river, do this, go down to the lake, do that. It's all about movement. Movement creates momentum. And when you're not moving, you're losing momentum. And the more momentum you lose, the easier it is to get stuck into the I'm a failure. How could I get out of this? What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Why am I so different than everybody else? All of these useless questions. Just, I mean, quite honestly, they don't really lead you to an action. And if they don't lead you to an action, then you lack clarity.
And this is why it's important for church. Now, look, everybody that doesn't go to church has this thing to say. I can't go down there where a whole bunch of people just talk about me or faking it or whatever. And this person said this about me or that. I wouldn't dare hang out with. That's this many compared to a whole mass. And it's a lie. It's the same thing as hearing these bad thoughts in your mind that's looping.
Well,
that's
it's again focusing on the wrong thing. You could focus on the good people who make you feel good and love to shake hands with them.
And that's why it's important for you to get around those crowds. But it's also the reason why that everyone that has a problem or issue with religion has the exact same story of why they don't want to go.
Correct.
And it's always just one individual. One individual did this.
Looked at me wrong.
And then a little clique of individuals.
And then you know what happened when they looked at me wrong? I went home and I thought about it for 6.5 months.
And
I'm sorry, but that's not that person's fault.
You make something up in your head. This is what happens. It happens to me all the time, folks. Still to this day. When I speak to somebody or I talk to someone, my mind will make things up about what they thought, how they perceived me, what I looked like and what they felt I looked like, or
what they thought of me.
And it's all stuff that is iffy information.
Yeah.
It's not real. And the best way to defeat that is go head first into it and talk to that individual.
Right. So reflection leads to clarity, which leads to actions, and rumination leads to anxiety or exhaustion, which leads to numbness, paralysis. Paralysis. Okay,
I love her accent.
So that's something to think about, because if your thinking isn't producing movement, it's not reflection. So this is the dividing line for you. Is your thinking making you do this or that, or is your thinking making you stay at home by yourself and circulate more negative thoughts? This is the question I would ask from myself. And if I knew that was the question I needed to ask from myself, I would have been able to get out of the funk much faster. Instead of that, I met people who were telling me I needed to do this or that, and that doesn't help. You know, like when I'm not telling you what to do, I'm telling you what kind of questions to ask from yourself so that you can get closer to the truth that it is in you. It is in you. I'm not holding your truth. He's not holding your truth.
You want to produce good in your life, and how you do that is by doing good. That's simple. You want corn, you plant corn in the ground.
Right.
You don't plant an apple seed. You plant corn in the ground if you want corn. And so doing something good for someone will help in return get something good.
Now, so one of the things that I haven't stopped doing throughout this time, and that's probably what saved me from the mental hospital or losing my job or creating more trouble in my life, was the movement that I've done synchronized with breath. So I know if you never tried Tai Chi or yoga, you have no idea what you're missing out. But I also have to say that now this is where a lot of people go like, well, I don't know how to do yoga, I don't know how to do Tai Chi. Okay, fine. You don't have YouTube, I'm sure, and you cannot look up the hundreds of videos that are on YouTube. Well, then just go and take a walk, go run.
Breathe.
Move,
breathe. Watch, you'll breathe. You start running and you'll find yourself...
You're not going to be circulating a thought about what so-and-so told you like 3.5 years ago, or, what so-and-so thought of you last week. It's not gonna be happening.
You're going to be thinking, man, my legs are sore.
It's going to be, I feel like I'm dying. That's a good thought. When you feel like you're dying, that's actually when you're being reborn. So awesome. That's how your cells feel revived and
Got to be broke down.
yeah, exactly. Also, use external accountability. Okay, so like so here's the common thread between him and me. I was seeking somebody who I could help. He was seeking somebody,
Who could help me?
who could help him, or just somebody who would, benefit from a relationship with him. I mean, you cannot seriously think that nobody on earth would benefit from a relationship with you. It's just gotta be the right person.
What I truly thought, and this is a fact still today, is that my life was so I don't know how to explain it, so wild and so out there, and I was going through so much that I felt if someone could get a hold of my life story and then help flip it and tell people about it, it would change it. It would change other people's lives. I know I'm not alone in this. When I was homeless, I was surrounded by veterans who gave their lives for our freedom, who were stuck on the street begging for food and begging for just someone to care for them. It was an eye-opener for me. For almost 2 years, I saw it over and over and over. And that's the thing that you need in your life, is somebody that'll care. But now I've totally forgotten what I was talking about.
I was talking about accountability. I was talking about having somebody in your life who's gonna stop this internal echo of hearing your own voice.
And you know what? When you talk about accountability, she made it very clear to me.
Who?
You.
Oh.
You made it very clear to me that I had something worth sharing. You made it clear to me that what I had. First of all, you laughed at everything I did. I hadn't had anyone laugh at me in a long time. Let's start making fun of me, and she made me feel like I was.
Well, and that's the
funny.
thing. Everybody does, and this is why this is important. Thank you for bringing that up. This is really important because I'm talking to a lot of trauma survivors here, and the truth, guys, is that I used to use drugs, and I used to be even more dysfunctional than how I was 10 years ago, like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Like all of those things did not happen for no reason. They made me the person who I am today, but that's not the point. The point is that as soon as you can stop feeling sorry for yourself and you can put all of your energy into sharing the things, just blasting like everybody with the stories that you had in your life, you're gonna find so many friends. There are so many people who can relate to the weak moments in your lives if you were strong enough to share them. Vulnerability is often looked down, but there is no happiness. There are no true connections without being able to be vulnerable.
And you're without someone holding you accountable to what you're saying or what your thoughts are, or it's insanity. You'll keep doing the same things with the same results, expecting life to change. That's insanity.
And even though I love therapy, I'm gonna insert this in here too. Therapy by itself does not solve this problem. I did therapy back then. So in the days that I'm talking about right now, I was either seeking a therapist or I was doing therapy. And yet I felt the same way when I went home. I had once a week therapy session and I felt great about it for like 24 hours, You pay hundreds of dollars for it and then you go home and then you get back into the exact same loop. So on the long-term solution that you're looking for is more like a community, more like loving people, more like people who appreciate your value, the things that you have to offer, rather than people who just want to get and create toxic relationships.
And don't be discouraged about, the things that haven't changed or haven't changed yet in your life. I use substance to feel better all my adult life. And that didn't change from the moment that just because I found Fru. I was still addicted to things, and still today I get overwhelmed and overburdened with
stress,
anxiety, pain.
Yeah.
And I still fall back to a substance. Substance is the things hoped for, evidence of the things. See, that's faith. And we're designed, once we utilize that faith and put it to action, it works. But what our body and our physical being wants is to feel good, as hence Dr. Philgood.
Safety. You don't heal a loop by thinking your way out. You disrupt it with a real physical sign of safety.
So you're not a failure if you
No.
still are dependent on something to help you feel better. I still depend on Fru.
And I still depend on him.
And then oftentimes I'm overwhelmed where I'm still dependent on a substance to help me. And maybe I will be the rest of my life. Who knows? It doesn't make me feel bad is what I'm saying. I don't want you to think that we're over here, oh, we got it all figured out. No, we don't. We don't. I mean, we're working towards a better life, but don't look at us that way, and it separates and isolates you as a failure, because if that's the case, then we're failures, because we still have things that go on in our life that we do wrong, that aren't healthy for us. But our goal is to help ourselves get better and do the healthy, make the healthy choices.
And do it in a way where it supports others too, because we didn't come up with these stories. They happened to us. But I also know every single time, keep it in mind, you guys, every single time I, do a research on an issue such as this, I find out that there are hundreds and millions of people feeling the exact same way. So you're not alone in this. You might be isolated at this moment, and you may not have any relationship with anybody who understands what you're going through, but we do understand it, and that's one of the reasons why we're talking about this today. And also there are demanding friends, and like I said, people tell you what to do this, do that. That healing doesn't come from pressure. It can only happen in safety. And I know David a lot of times says, Fru did this to me and did that to me and whatever. In reality, when I met him, I didn't do anything for him. I was just there to observe without judgment. Yeah. And that by itself creates safety. And that by itself gives hope to people. And so if you feel well enough and you can go and do that for somebody else, you will get better. I guarantee you, this is my testimony. My life is a testimony to that. Our relationship is a testimony to that. So you're not stuck in if you're stuck in your head today, you're not crazy and you're not broken, you're not lazy, you're not failing, you're none of that stuff. This is just a loop. Some people call it a funk, some people call it rumination. But either way, you have to start with one step, not with a protocol, not with a system, not with a regimen. You have to start it with one step. You pick what that one step is. I would pick it for you. If I were you, it would be, without any questions, finding somebody who you can help on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be one person, but you have to keep coming back doing it. It's something that you have to commit yourself to doing it.
You got to commit to telling me to turn the air conditioner on before we do this show.
I've actually put on the heating and I totally forget about it. I'm so sorry, but we're done. This episode is brought to you by the Patrick Risha CT Awareness Foundation, because CT isn't just a player problem, it's a family condition. So please learn more at
stopcte.org.
And if this resonated with you, drop the word loop in the comments. Or if you'd like to hear more from us and read more about what we read every day, what we share with others, then join us in Wellness Tuners, which is our Facebook group, where we talk about real healing, real tools, and nervous system regulation from a faith-based and biology-backed lens.
Thank you guys for joining us and for watching everything that we do. Those of you that watch in silence,
thank you. We love you guys.
Ooh, it's hot in here, Fru.
Sorry, you can open the door now.